Good evening. My name is Marilyn Donahue. Welcome to this week's segment of the Finance Committee meeting, March 20th, 2013. The Finance Committee meetings are held generally on Wednesday evenings in the Multi-Service Center. The public is always welcome to attend. Our minutes are posted on the town website, and information on how to reach the Finance Committee members is there as well. We invite you to join and participate with the work that we're doing here. This evening's meeting got off to a late start because some of us have day jobs that actually run late into evening, but the town administrator discussed some of his proposals for the upcoming year, and there was some discussion about the TIF, the Tax Incremental Financing Agreement that we're going to be reviewing for town meeting, which is a tax incentive program for the proposed hotel at the Rosebrook Place Center. I believe that will be on our agenda formally next week for further information on that. We also had some discussion about a reorganization and information about a reorganization within the town hall, which will be a proposal also at town meeting. As you may be aware, several positions have been eliminated, vacated, are no longer in effect at town hall. And there's a bulk of work that falls in the town administrator's lap for human resources, procurement, as well as all the financials. His proposal is to reorganize the position, and tonight he presented us with budget figures as to how that position would be funded for a finance director, treasurer position. This is a position that's common in many other towns in the Commonwealth. We think it makes a lot of sense to do it here in Wareham. And again, it will be a proposal at town meeting that we can vote on then. We had further discussion with regard to the Upper Cape budget. Two of our members attended the session where the budget was presented from Upper Cape, and the superintendent will be here next week formally to present it to the entire Finance Committee. It is a very large number on the Wareham budget. We were all very concerned about it. Where we understand there's a great education available at Upper Cape, it's a lot of money, and we have to find a way to fund that. The rest of the evening was spent discussing how we will handle town meeting, when we will be finalizing our votes on both the special town meeting warrant articles and the spring town meeting warrant articles. And that will be next week as well. So stay tuned for further information. Thank you.
I apologize.
Call me to order 7:15. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Worthing, Mr. Camerano, Mr. Heath, our beautiful chairman, Mrs. Brock, and myself, our president.
Any citizens participation? Seeing none, we'll just skip on to item number 5.
Please continue.
Town administrator's report. This is town administrator's report. Part of what we're going to have to do tonight, though, Garrett, so you know, also, is there any update? I'm going to interrupt your report. Is there any update for numbers in the article, in the warrant that we received so far? I mean, can you sit there and say, you know, Article 14 is worth this amount now, and is that something we're going to have to wait another week for?
The water pollution control facility article is going to be what you have in the budget as it's spelled out in there. So those numbers are staying the same. They're not
But
going to
there's
change.
the verbiage in a lot of these have no numbers at all.
Right.
So, you know, we don't know if it's 25,000 for something, 15,000 for something. It just says an amount. Right, and historically, this committee has voted, you know, blanks.
Yeah.
They always have numbers. So I guess the question becomes, when are we gonna have the numbers? We only have 2 more meetings. One is next week, which is the 27th, and then the second, we have to sign off on everything so that we can have it prepared to go to the printer, and that's the 5th.
This
So
is
that-
sort of
that becomes the biggest question.
it's sort of the chaos we go through every year, because at some point and it's almost arbitrarily choose a budget that we're just going to stick with at that point, even though we know it's going to change.
Right, I'm not referencing the budget, I'm referencing the articles, like so much from the Harbor Master's one. Those types, we don't have numbers on those, which I was very surprised.
The only ones that I wouldn't the only ones that I wouldn't have on there are the EMS and the water pollution control, which right now are the same ones that are in the budget. There had been some talk with the EMS director if we were going to upgrade some of the expenses on there and try to see how that would work within the budget. And that's why it had been left out. But those are the same numbers that you have in the budget document.
So Article 9, we'll use the budget number,
That would be,
the EMS,
it's the same one that you have in the budget.
All right, here's the article that we tabled last week, I know after you went. All right, Article 5 is to set compensation for elected officials. We have no numbers, and then we always have that number at the town meeting. All right.
Harbor master maintenance.
Article 6, again, there's no number in the motion, and there always was a number in the motion.
There's no more, and
That's to set up a reserve fund. All right, Article 7 is the Upper Cape.
Article,
There's no number on there.
I'm sorry, Article 6 on there should be the budget itself.
I'm sorry, Article 6
is the
my
budget.
mistake.
Yeah.
All right, Article 7, all right, is the Upper Cape number.
Is
All
that,
right, that's going to be imperative that we have the number that's going to be moved on the floor.
is that gonna be this one?
Yeah, no, he's going to basically drop that number by $502,000.
Okay,
We have the updated number that we have from the Upper Cape Cod Tech was roughly 100,000 less than what they had told us to anticipate.
so instead of 2,996, it's 2,886?
Trying to, let me grab the budget that I have here. You're not going to see, no, the Upper Cape Cod Tech budget is going to be the 2,595,000.
2,500 and what?
$95,539.
Okay,
The reserve fund is $500,688.
5,000, what did you say the reserve was?
$500,688,
688.
of which $400,688 is held in reserve for what the assessment from the Upper Cape Cod Tech is.
Okay,
Isn't that the more than asking for? They're saying the total assessment is 2,996.
yeah. Okay,
And he just gave you
500,000,
maybe 3
500.
million and change.
Is that the five?
Yeah, you did give me 3 million and change.
All right, then I didn't bring the updated budget that I done this
Okay.
afternoon.
That's the problem we have, when you come back and say this, well, it's a budget number, but the budget numbers keep shifting.
Right, but that's,
Right, so-
and that's,
Yeah,
that is the issue. I mean, some of those, the Upper Cape Cod number's not going to change. It's not, it's a 2,500,000. No, the reserve fund changed.
okay, but we have a total of 2,996,227.
From Upper Cape Cod Tech.
Yes,
Yes,
That's
that's
their
for
what
operating and capital.
Right. But what we're putting in the budget is 2,595,000. We don't put in their requested number.
No, but then you're putting 502, so you're putting away
3 million.
3
That's why I
million.
changed the reserve number.
Yeah.
The reserve number is the only one that would change to match up to that. So if you give me, what was the Upper Cape Cod Tech?
2,996,227.
I would like you to note that they are being kind and did give us an extra dollar less than what they actually put.
I really don't want me to go.
Just get the math wrong, it's a scrivener's error.
Okay, so we'll have that all straightened out.
Yeah, the Upper Cape Cod Tech number that we're using for the budget is 2,595,539. which would mean there's $400,688. Plus the 100,000 that we already have in our reserve fund is $500,688.
Okay,
So that was correct on there. Because we already have 100,000 in reserve, we're putting the extra 400,688 in there.
okay.
You're welcome.
So if I read this right, from
What do we print?
FY 2008 to 2014, holy moly.
We gotta come back, on our report, are we gonna print a warrant that has no numbers in it?
No,
The next one, Frank, would be 12, right?
That was a different reason, I was looking for something legal. Next article would be
School textbook and school technology.
16 was a problem, there's no number in 16, no numbers in 16.
we'll go to 14.
14 also?
Now 14 was that, we were gonna wait on that one until they came and talked to us. Is that correct?
Which
Yes. That was the one for the books.
The books.
And with the Article 13, normally what we did in the warrants, we listed all the revolving funds.
But they're the same revolving funds as in the budget document.
Well, if we approve them and they're in the budget already, aren't we double approving?
When are we gonna have a budget to print?
The budget document, I'm going through the list of what they are. One of the reasons is you don't need to have the revolving funds in all of the warrant articles. We're taking up an entire page to print, to do everything for these revolving funds that will also be listed on the budget document on there.
So why do we even have them on the warrant?
No, why are
If
they?
we're gonna approve the budget and go through line by line on the budget, why do we need a warrant?
And aren't we approving them twice?
No, because your budget document, when you have that town meeting, is a budget handout that does not include the revolving funds, it does not include the other budget articles. You'll have it where it's listed what the revenues are by taxation, by what you have for local receipts and reimbursements, and available funds. Then you'll offset that with the expenses on there like we did it last year. But the revolving funds are done as a separate article, but you'll have a separate document on it. Printing it inside the warrant, it's a simple warning on there, it's what the warrant is. My understanding is when the finance committee, when you put out your whole budget with the motions or the explanations in it, is when all that information can be put in there.
I think that's what Frank is asking you, Derek. That's what they need it for, so they can go to the printer.
For theirs, yeah,
That's what it is.
that's fine, but in the warrant document itself, that would be under the explanations.
We usually have,
Go ahead.
we usually have the numbers.
Where? In the explanations?
No, we were given the numbers first, usually late, but first. Aren't they?
I don't remember.
I always saw them in the actual article.
Yeah.
Exactly, in the article.
And my understanding partially was also that it was that way, so it was easier for people to follow.
Follow.
the meeting. All right, this basically says, if you want to know what's in Article 13, flip 5 pages back and find it at the bottom of the budget, but it's not part of the budget.
It's hard for the,
They have to, look, there's nothing we can do about that now. I can understand the point on there. And the thought process behind there was removing some of the information to make it a cleaner document, because you'll have subsequent documents with it.
but some people are gonna say they're not transparent documents, that's what they're gonna say.
It's,
And we always aim to be transparent, that's one of the biggest things we all are looking to do, and make everything open to folks. They're never gonna be able to flip back and forth and follow it.
Well, but
Never.
within the explanation, we will
The
cover the
explanation
numbers.
would be right underneath.
So you'd have the warrant article, and the explanation would be the beef.
So when.
Oh, it's our job to do the beef now.
No, it's not. Explanation is not the duty of this committee. Never was.
Okay. You can have this all in
Correct me
the
if I'm wrong,
ordinance.
Madam Moderator, when did it become the responsibility of the FinCom to explain?
I think there's some confusion of, I know, what happens when you print the warrant, you generally don't put any dollar amounts in them. When you print the warrant, it usually is just a warning to tell people what the subject matter is that you're going to be discussing. It goes in the Finance Committee report. So it's almost like you reprint the warrant, but you reprint it with the numbers in it. That's, I think we're throwing out the word warrant, and I think that's where it gets confusing. The warrant is just something that gets posted. It's like back in the old days when you had the horse and buggy, they would go around and tack it up on a pole and just say, okay, we're going to talk about this, this, and this. So you have the warrant that gets posted, but it generally doesn't have the dollar amounts in it at the time of the posting, because for the most part, you don't know what they are anyway,
Okay.
okay? When the FinCom does the Finance Committee report, which is handed out at town meeting, that's when you almost copy the warrant word for word, and then you put in the dollar amounts, and that's what you hand out at town meeting. And hopefully it gets printed early enough so people can pick it up, and they see it before town meeting.
What?
In the 3 years that I've been.
Three, Madam Moderator? That is something new. Since I've been here, that's not been the way it's been done. I mean, don't get me wrong, you do it any way you want it, but, sorry. We've always had numbers. Every year I've been here,
I'll tell you, the years that I've been here, it was always, what we printed was what was given to us. All we modified was we put our recommendations in there. We never modified either the article as it was presented to us or even the explanations that were given to us. We only put in our recommendations in the 2 years that I've been here.
No, when it's printed in the FinCom report, when that report that gets handed out at town meeting, then you have the warrant article that, and it has the dollar amount in, that's your finance
But
committee.
we never put it in, is what we're telling you, Claire. What we have right now, we're not seeing anything in the article. We normally would have taken this document and printed it, and then put our recommendations underneath it.
and always had the numbers in it. Always had them.
And it always had explanations. And I understand the warrant when it originally goes out, you can do it any way that you want. Our question has to be, is when are we gonna receive the copy that we always receive with the numbers in there, so that we know what we're talking about? When we say, well, we're favorable to taking $25,000 for Article 75.
So that's usually what Derek does in between when the warrant is posted and when he gets it to Kelly. He goes back and puts those numbers in and gets it to you, so that's what you
Well, that's
have.
what I was asking, when will we have that? And
Okay,
That's
so
what
we're
he's
talking about
asking.
two different
Right.
subjects then, so I apologize. I
Yes.
thought you were speaking about the original one that
No.
goes out
No,
and
no,
it's
no.
posted.
When are we gonna have the revised, you can't call it a revised draft. When are we gonna have the final version? No, can't even say that.
Well, it is the final
The
version.
warrant articles that
No,
contain the dollar amount so that
Yeah.
you can print it in the Finance Committee report.
Exactly. Very good, very good.
So, I guess the question on there, Kelly, is with ample time, when's the last meeting before the printing date?
April 3rd.
April 3rd, so you would need them by next week,
Mhm.
so that you could have a meeting to review them and then a meeting to vote on them.
Exactly.
The
To
last,
review and vote,
right, the
yes.
last day we're voting is April 3rd. It's going to the printer on April 5th, that Friday.
So
We
the,
only have 24
so you
hours
would
to
need,
recommendations.
they would need to be available for the week's meeting before.
Give that to Derek, it's got the dates on it.
What, 27?
And that's
That might help
usually
you.
what we're scrambling to do to get it to Kelly on that Friday before it gets to the printer. So it is following the same thing that's been done in the past, but I think we just had different terminology.
We usually get one in a couple of days, right? We
Well-
usually get a week.
Usually more than a week.
I'm just saying, we usually have a week to, at least a week to do it. I know I'm right, because
We have
Bob
staff.
and I did it one time. Maryland.
It's, Wareham, but,
We had a week.
and then
What-
the numbers.
What we were doing was writing the explanation. I'm not sure that we were confined to a certain dollar amount at that point.
Yeah.
Always had a dollar.
You were writing the advice. Okay.
All right, well, it's changed.
Okay.
So you'd have to have them before next meeting to discuss at next meeting, then the following meeting on the 3rd to give you the time to vote on them. But you need to write up information about them, so you probably need them by the end of this week, huh?
Mhm.
Alright.
Might it be better to put the amounts in an explanation?
The explanation?
Put it in the explanation.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
would make sense.
And who's writing the explanation?
Who's ever put in the article?
Yes.
So the finger pointed at me was right for certain ones.
Yeah, well, the majority of the articles are
Yeah.
probably bad.
You can keep that if you need it. You need that, Darko?
Actually, yeah.
Go ahead, take it.
Thank you.
So we would need those by next week. With the goal being ease of reading too, which is always been the goal for the report. Ease of reading, and I don't have to go back and hunt up the budget.
Yeah, because that would be, and I'm sorry, because I think I'm on a different plane, because I'm thinking, you have the article there, then you have the explanation with the numbers directly under the article.
That's right.
So it's not hunting to the back of the document, so maybe when I was saying,
Yeah, it's just the way it was phrased.
when I was speaking about now was the numbers that we have in front of us on there, on the budget document.
Right. Okay.
I'll blame it on the blow pop.
No, hey, every document we used over the last 2 years. All right, so you'll have numbers for us next week, so that we can, or the explanations with the numbers in them, so that we'll be able to vote on them in the following week,
Correct.
all right, and then do our recommendations as well. That's still close for us, but, that would be good, because what can happen, some of these were pretty settled, we were just waiting for the number. If the number's appropriate, we can vote it next week. That would help tremendously. Okay. Now we go to the town administrator's report.
Is there a comment?
Most important
I had
on the budget.
I had an informal chat regarding some information that would be in front of you regarding the finance director position on there. Giving you the first part is what the original funding would be if there was no reorganization, which is considered the FY13 status quo. And then the next section would be the FY14 reorganization. And then you have on the bottom of that the salary only savings, so the direct cost, the savings cost that you would save. Part of that you'd see is from the town accountant, reducing them by approximately $19,000. The assistant town accountant position being eliminated. This leaves the town accountant's office with 2 full-time employees, the town accountant and another position in there. And then the other thing would be to upgrade the treasurer collector position to a finance director, treasurer, which would have an increase in there. So the FY13 status quo, full cost is $214,514.28. The reorganization would be $167,321.67 for a savings of $47,192.61. And what it does, it puts one person essentially in charge of the main functions of the finance, which is also partially including the technology department, because in most of the municipal towns and such, the technology comes under the finance department. And that gives it better oversight as well.
You have a person for the finance director, right?
Yes, it would be an upgrade of the treasurer collector's position.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
I look-
Looks good to me.
Looked at what office was cross-trained.
Mhm.
In other words, any employee leaves or is sick, so the other employees are able to do that function. Believe it or not, that's the only office on there. I also looked over the last 2 years when we had the audits done and the major issues and whose numbers our auditors felt satisfied using, and to be blunt, saved the day on there, allowed them to actually do audits. That was the department. It's a person with assessing experience, came into the town as an assessor, and also knows the finances from every aspect, from accounting in each department. I couldn't picture going out and finding a better candidate for that.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I absolutely agree with you 100%.
I think at some point we have to look at within our own talent and really utilize what we have.
Mrs. Donahue?
What does that do for a hole in the treasurer collector department?
You would still have a treasurer on there. It's upgrading. It's going to be, to be blunt, there's going to be more work involved in there, and you've probably, he's somebody that's not a 9-to-5 already. He puts in plenty of hours, but it now gives a centralized location for all the issues. And I actually believe at the end of it, during the reorganization, I think he's the person to make it so that after some time, the actual hours being worked for that position would probably be less than the astronomical beginning on there.
One more comment, if I may. I think you're preaching to the choir as to help you out when you're talking to this group about this position. But I think when we're trying to put it forth to the town, it might also be beneficial to discuss the positions that we no longer have in town hall, make it very clear what in the past we did have in terms of personnel, purchasing, the actual work that was being done that has really landed all at your desk, I believe. So, not that you're trying to get out of work, but you're already doing 3 or 4 jobs that have been eliminated, positions that have been eliminated. So that if that should be the other piece in the presentation for town meeting. I don't think you need to, again, tell us that, but I think that should come up very clearly.
The man that you're recommending is impeccable. I mean, he's just, in my opinion, he's solid as a rock. You're almost there.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Ultimately, putting everything aside, because we can look at all this and see that what ultimately is the information from a finance committee standpoint that we need to see in a timely fashion. Now that's happening a little better now, but we'd like to get to that point. But one of the things that concerns me is I don't know how to put this. The water pollution control facility has been completely ignored. That's the best word for it. The level of financial expertise that's going to be necessary, because it is an enterprise fund, because it does operate differently than what municipal county sees on a daily, day in, day out basis. How's that going to be handled? Because clearly we're not looking at it now. And now that's got to be added into this equation somehow or another. So you are increasing the workload to a certain degree just by, you're eliminating a position. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. You're eliminating a position, giving people a little more responsibility, but that is still.
We haven't had an accountant in a long time.
We've had, well, regardless of what we have an accountant, so to speak. But my point is, are we going to be able to address the water pollution control facility, the enterprise fund? Because it is critical that we understand that's a business and it needs to be addressed sooner than later.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the superintendent, the director of the water pollution control facility, has hired a account temp, if you will, to go in there to start creating some spreadsheets and being able to work within our VADAR system to create systems that, Guy's going to say that he himself could do, which he can work on there. But part of it's also in the FY14 budget, they are hiring a part-time bookkeeper as well to maintain that. They don't have anybody really looking at that. And that's a $6 million entity, you know. And it has to be, I would say that has to come from that fund. Because if we're hiring something on the town side to take care of just of the water pollution control facility, then that's artificial, because the enterprise fund should be managing itself on there.
I'm good with that. That's how it's going to be handled in the future.
Article 31 will take care of that.
Well,
I got to that.
Tom? My concern would be that we still don't have documented procedures. Right? We're depending upon the treasurer that we have now, the assistant town accountant that we have right now. You're going to the new organization and to perform above the level they are right even now. And not only that, but they're not documenting what they're doing. It's like writing a computer program without documenting it. If they leave or anything, we're right back to where we started from. So my question would be, is that you have an adequate amount of resource or a plan, right, to document the procedures that are necessary to make this work? Because you're not gonna have time. I would agree with you that the savings are available as long as the stuff is being put in correctly up front. Our problem right along in money spent is because we've been trying to go back and do forensic accounting rather than daily accounting. All right, do you have an adequate amount of resource to document what needs to be documented, so in case of illness, sickness, retirement, or whatever, all right, the next person can step in even on a temporary basis and do the work according to the town's procedures?
That's a great question, because the treasurer's office already has their procedures
Exactly.
down.
Exactly.
The accounting office is working on theirs, and by the end of fiscal 14 is when it should be all taken care of. That may seem like far off, but it's something that has never even been attempted before. So that is being worked on, and that would be part of this whole operation, because you're right. One thing we don't plan is succession planning. When somebody leaves, it was the greatest example of it was the 2 weeks ago during a selectmen's meeting when we heard that somebody was out because they were sick, so they couldn't send the bills out. And that's horrifying. So they, not to be long-winded, and I find myself being that more often than not, but they have, the treasurer's collector's office has that. So what I would say is, as the finance director, I would imagine that he's going to put together and make sure that it's all compiled into whether it's one for each department or an overarching one. Because some of the things, and one of the reasons why I think John's one of the best people for it is, during this year, I said, can you create a calendar of what needs to be done when? He pulled it off from the DOR site and then gave extra examples on there. Those are the types of policies and procedures we need to know. Because I have to tell you, in all honesty, if it's coming out of the town administrator's office, whether it's myself or someone else, that's how things get left behind, I will tell you.
Yeah.
Will it be a review item for both parties to ensure that these procedures are done by the fiscal year end 14? That there's a plan in place and that there's progress going along? We've heard plans before. We have a plan, then nothing happens.
Color coded too.
The other side is you could have a plan, right, and you have steps within the plan by which you measure it. Okay, and you measure a person's performance as to how well they've done against those steps.
Okay.
So I'm asking you, are they gonna have those types of plans? Are those gonna be required of them? And at year end, will it be evaluated on those?
So far, we've always used the auditor to evaluate whether we did those, but doing it in-house would make much more sense and having it during the year. You're asking me something that's realistic. I don't know if I was putting it in that exact same manner, but it's a great way to think about it.
As I said previously, I think your final place is where you want to be. I'm just very concerned about the entry. And I want to make sure that you get where you want to be by the end of 14, because that's what the town needs to be. It's a good plan, right? And I think you might have, I think you have the right people in place, right, today. But you never know what's going to happen
Tomorrow, exactly.
Right, Madam Chairman?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Right, Madam? No, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Hello.
And Mr. Chair, I do appreciate, because I'm going to be honest, if I thought of everything and knew every single thing that was going to happen, I'd probably be retired and down in the Caribbean right now. So part of what I think the biggest help of this committee, they say it's about town meeting, but coming here, it's a learning process for all of us. You see what the finance is, and I start hearing something that would be a great part to implement it, so I appreciate it.
I'll ask you about adequate resource, because, places like, I know there's at least 2 universities that have internship programs that are small dollars. Right? These are great courses of academic study, putting in county procedures and stuff like that together. So I guess I'm saying, as you look at your budget, I would hope that you'd have some resources set aside, that if you needed that type of outside, shall we say, drudgery work, okay, that you would be able to take advantage of it. Maybe Suffolk University has some good interns.
They had some.
Oh, they had some.
Always depends who you ask.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead, the rest of your report, do you have anything else for us that you want?
That the part of this, just to give you update, because this is an impact to the budget, it's a memo that I sent to the community events regarding their funding. When you looked at the legislative act that was brought to my attention on there, you saw it, every year we automatically set aside funds coming in from the parking and the hotel, motel excise option. But when you read through it, it said that the 70% of the excise collected under Section 3A of Chapter 64G, and going through the rest of it, and then to make it concise, deposit in the Wareham Parking Meter Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2007, shall be credited to the Community Events Fund. The problem is the legislative act does not say "and beyond" and continuing, does not give a mechanism for it going into the future, which means technically, well, not technically, that those monies now that have been brought aware should not be set aside automatically like that. We're probably speaking from the hotel, motel right now, that's probably about 25,000. We're probably talking about between 30 and 35,000 altogether. The only one that would be added to the budget automatically is the hotel. It's not going to make a huge difference in the budget, but every dollar really counts. So we're looking probably, when I researched the last 3 years of what we've collected on there, we've probably gained about an extra $20,000 in our local funds. The other part about this is, and I think a lot of times it's the unintended consequences. We also look, we have a hotel potentially coming to town through a TIF agreement if it were to be passed, where the hotel excise on that is roughly $150,000 a year. 70% of that is about $105,000.
You don't want that going on.
It doesn't really correlate on there, but I start thinking about when you go back to 2007 or 2006 when it was brought forward, nobody thought about these types of things. And we're trying to make the decisions now that will benefit the community 5, 6, 10 years and won't sort of hamper it.
Who's come on?
How did this, who found this? How was this brought to your attention, if I may ask?
It was brought by a citizen to my attention.
Okay. Question 2. Has the community event spent the money that was allocated in these past years? You can't ask them for something to get something back that they spent.
No, that's, there's some monies that are still set aside in account. However, the question is, there was a town meeting vote, although it said it came from specific money set aside, town meeting did vote to set X amount of dollars, let's say 25,000 for the year. So as for going after those funds, they probably would be considered already legally appropriated out of the town meeting. I think that would be a very slippery slope to go down.
Absolutely. Question 3. When this Community Act in '08 was set up, who brought it at that time? Was it meant to be every year, or was this just an error that now all of a sudden the town found a windfall by someone's error? Or was it meant for every year, or was it meant just for the year? I was under the assumption it was for every year. I could be wrong. I know that the community events is definitely planned on it every year. And then my 4th question is, how's that going to affect community events?
Okay,
I know that we may need the money, but
Question.
this is tough.
Question 3 would be, I write in the memo, and it's not trying to be cute, that it's whether through intent or flaw in the act, the town did not have the legal authority to credit any money to the community events fund. It doesn't matter whether somebody intended it to be 100 years or 0 years. It says
It is what it is. Okay, I can swallow that. Anyone look into the effects of it will have in the community events? The town relies on community events to pull off some great things.
Community Events has an article in the special town meeting requesting $25,000 in funds. Doesn't mean that they can't come before the town like any other board and request money.
Okay. Thank you. You answered my questions. It's a good thing Bonnie's
No,
not here.
I guess I was gonna say the same thing, I wanted to make sure that, I don't wanna see something good go away, but I certainly understand, I don't wanna see, $100,000 more go into it,
No, I
where we
agree.
don't need it. So we do have to iron it out right now.
My suggestion to them would be to come before town meeting, have what they're sponsoring. They may not know all at this time, but I'm pretty sure they'll have their applications in or such, and list it and bring it for a town meeting for a vote. I have to tell you, one of the worst things we do is automatically encumber funds for something, and I don't see this. This isn't to harm, dissolve, or everything community events, but there's certain things when brought to your attention you have to act on, and this is one of them.
I can think of another one.
Mrs. Donahue?
My first question is, are we in trouble for the past years that we've been doing this? Is there any problems with DOR because we've been funding it this way?
No, I still think, I'm sorry if you still could, I still think that we have the legal mechanism of the town meeting vote saying that they were taking 25,000 from these
And every year we
funds set
voted on,
aside.
every single year,
Right.
whether authorized by we've been told it was housekeeping, it was just routine. And I just would like to bring up a point, because Bonnie's not sitting here.
Ooh,
I feel morally obligated to say that Bonnie will be very unhappy to lose this on a technicality. That's how she perceives it to be, just a technicality that it wasn't properly written in. But if she were here, I would also say to her that it's time to revisit and relook at, given the information that we have today with the new hotel and more revenues. I think we would all advocate for some source of funding for community events, but as you say, it's not necessarily the smartest to encumber this. So thank you for making us aware of this.
that it? We're done?
Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see him. I can't see that sign. That's all the trouble is on the left.
Maybe I should have said I'm done.
Yeah,
Mr. McDonald.
First off, I think we do need to fund community events, but I think this is a better mechanism now for them to request the money as opposed to doing it as a percentage, because obviously, as things go up, they get more money. Now, before I start looking like a bad egg, one of the problems I had, when community events comes in here and starts saying, hey, we'd like to give you $18,000 to start a parking meter fund to buy a kiosk. I have a problem with that, because that, number one, that means that they have more money than they need, because now they're trying to fund a parking meter fund as opposed to community events, which is what they were set up to do. So yes, I think this is a better mechanism because we can limit the amount of money and keep it to community events, which is what they're set up to do, not to build something like that. Please have at it.
Through you. But see, you're not looking at it, I mean, there's plenty of ways to look at it. But now I look at it as them funding the parking meter and funding that. Why? Because that's gonna create more revenue for their events. They get money from the parking meter fund. So when you fund something to make money to help your cause, come on, it's business 101.
Well, do I get to answer that?
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the point is it's just backwards. What's been happening is they get a ton of money, and then they get to decide how to spend it, rather than building their budget based on who's approached them, what events they choose to sponsor. In other words, they say, we have $25,000, how do we want to spend it? Rather than saying, we only need $12,000 for this year. That's, just seems to be putting the money before the event.
Right.
McDonald.
Again, community events, not parking meter fund, community events. And I agree with my colleague who says that this is no different than any other thing in town. This is what events you're going to have, this is how much money you need. But we put in a piece of legislation that basically continued to grow because it was never really thought through, I don't think, correctly. I mean, at the time, it may have been, it's the same amount of money we're giving them now, but it was never thought through correctly. And again, and I don't say this to be mean, but it's the same thing with CPC coming back to us. At some point in time, you have enough money, you've bought enough land, now you're looking for things to do with it. It's a concern of mine. We have so much, I'm just, in general, we need to make sure that we corral the money correctly, and to me, this is doing it. It's not a mean thing, I think it's a good thing.
Mr. Trump?
I think the community events and doing the kiosks is like you said, business 101, and Onset has been begging for this. We are providing free parking to people all over. They park their cars in front of people's businesses all day long, and bring their coolers down to the beach. We don't make a dime. This is what we need to do, make some money off these people. And I think that they took the right approach.
Mr. McDonald?
See, here's the problem, and I don't, the kiosk they're talking about goes on the pier, where we're already charging people. So you're not creating any more new revenue by putting a kiosk in a place where you're already generating from a shack. That is the problem. When we talk about this kiosk.
The kiosk is 24 hours a day.
Regardless.
Okay.
You're talking about a place that already generates revenue. It's not gonna do anything for all these parking places that are out in Onset there. So it's not gonna do anything for the other beaches we have in town. Little Harbor, where we don't have any of that. We're not generating revenue. We're just, we're doing the same thing with a different way. So that's not generating the revenue that you're talking about, so.
You generate a lot more.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna beat the dead horse. Next.
No, I'm being dead horse.
Well, I love to beat dead horses, you know that.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we've taken, there was a lot of study done on this as well. And, one of the problems we have is the kiosk is not open 24/7, like you said. There are lots of times, and not only that, even the start of the season, we missed a lot of revenue in the first couple of months.
It's not over 24/7. The one in Plymouth is.
No, I'm saying Not the kiosk, I mean, you know, the shed.
What?
The shed.
Oh, the shed isn't, right, but the kiosk can be
The kiosk
electronic.
is 24/7.
You'd make twice
Yeah,
as much.
right, so, and not only that, we also have the ticketing situation, et cetera. We do have the situation right now where there, like I said, is like, we miss at least 2 months worth of revenue easily. All right, plus we miss a lot of late night stuff, or we miss, you know, there's nobody in the shack anymore, people
Yeah.
can just get out. So those are the revenue opportunities. I would also defend the CEC in that when they originally came up with the idea, they came in and they presented it to us. They said, look, we're trying to find a way to continue we want to generate the revenues for our CEC events, et cetera. They felt the amount was too high. I thought they took a very reasonable approach, and they said, look, nobody's moved on this thing. We should have moved 2 years ago.
Exactly.
All right, so I think that was part of the reason why a lot of people sort of nodded and agreed that maybe they could try something. The question has always been whether or not it was in their purview to do so. All right, but they were the first ones to really bring forward what looked and appeared to be a potential plan that could work. All right, that's my say on the issue. I mean, it's just, I think it's wrong to come back and say that they, you know, they shouldn't be doing it. I think there's a good, they had every good intention, and somebody needs to do it. Any other comments? You're welcome to rebut me if you so.
Sure, I personally think it has not about intent to me. It was about the fact that when you get to the point that you have that much left over in community events and you're putting it into a parking meter fund, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea that they wanted to do it.
So what are you saying if it's not a
What I'm
bad
saying
idea?
is-
Come on, you're beating it up, well, then obviously you feel it's a bad idea.
Do I get to finish, or are you just gonna sit up there and throw up?
All right.
My point is, I never said it was a bad idea, and I never said it was bad intent. The problem is, when you have that much money in that account, that's telling me that we're overfunding the amount of events in town. It says community events. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they tried, but I'm telling you, that's what look up what they're supposed to be doing, community events. That's not a community event.
I'm not gonna go there.
Point of information,
Yes.
where do we stand on the parking meters? It's outside of this discussion, obviously, but is there any group in town that we're aware of is this going to be moved on this year?
I had a suggestion for
No.
that.
Nothing from capital planning?
There's no items from
There's
capital
no
planning
item.
for the town to purchase it outside of what the harbor master's article would be.
And is there issues with that article as well? Because I don't think that money can be used for that, or was there an issue with that fund being used for doing that?
It's
not clarified yet as to whether that's
Okay.
But
exactly
that's still
legal
only-
purposes.
It still just only addresses the pier parking, it's
Yeah.
still not just,
And I'm with you
Anything else?
that as
that's, all I wanna know, there's still nothing.
right,
No,
there
there's-
needs to be
there-
something. though.
There actually, it's the pier, the plan for the pier and further up on the bluffs
Further up in the
themselves.
bluffs, okay.
And then beyond that, it would be eventually, the part of the plan is working into where the Hammond School is,
Mhm.
creating additional parking there.
Mhm.
Mr. Pena from CETA has actually put in for a grant to study the parking for the entire town, not
Yeah.
just onset. And realistically, I mean, the kiosks on the pier are the first step, but we should have an overarching plan as well. And segmenting, it doesn't always work well, but I still, yes, I cringe when I think about lost revenues in the onset area.
Well, how does it get decided? Can the selectmen say, I want to have a kiosk there and I want to open it up on the 1st of May? Is it possible just to do that?
You can have funds.
Huh?
You'd have to, it would have had to.
Well, he's got 20 grand that he says is a carryover from those funds of the events people.
The events people wanna do it, do you want them?
Please.
No, I'm sorry.
Community events may still wish to continue that plan even with this. I know that the members are upset.
Well, let's
I've
not
spoken
screw
with-
around with this. Let's just do it. If it makes sense, it's gonna have revenue. And not worry about the details and all of that jazz.
I've been trying for 3 years.
Which article is this?
Huh? I mean, we need the money.
Special town meeting.
It's an opportunity. It's gonna save us labor. Just Just do it.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
So we stick to the, all right. I think we've killed it.
Yeah. And done anything that killed it.
All right. Anyone else have any, do you have anything else, Mr. Town Administrator? Do you have any questions?
It's not unfortunate, that's not the other stuff that goes with it.
So we will see numbers from you next week. Okay.
Yeah, for the only one would be on the special. Are you printing it during the same time?
Yes.
So I have to be blunt on the special with the transfers on there. That's one that I'm meeting with the department heads next week to go over. We've just heard from FEMA, or we know that the blizzard, while there's still the request for that to be reimbursed, will not be accomplished this fiscal year. So I'm looking at the departments, what they can absorb from the blizzard cost. I'm really trying to make transfers in there and not ask to deficit spend from the Department of Revenue, and make it work that we absorb these. So as to what the actual transfers are going to be, that's going to be a few weeks away. So most of my expenses still are only through February and such. I'd love to get marching, because right now we saw what a not being good at the turn of tongue tonight, we saw what a disaster it was last year when we tried to use the Municipal Relief Act, and we hadn't properly thought out the transfers for the year end. So I can't promise you you're going to have something to vote on there or have it in writing for the printing. So.
Article 2, we're gonna need a lot more detail on that.
We're talking about special.
The special town meeting.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of money to be voting on a trustee approach.
Okay. Yeah, I can give
We need to know what's behind that so that we write the recommendation to the town meeting. The explanation needs to be clear, so we can also write a clear recommendation on it.
I can give the clear and concise on there. The Department of Revenue said that we should have never done a healthcare holiday. We've received another letter from them that everybody's seen. Our auditors have told us that we do not have free cash. And to be blunt, I'm starting to listen to the people that are there to tell us whether we're right and wrong, and the people we pay to audit our numbers. That would be the simple answer on there. I know there's more detail that needs behind there, but that would be the genesis of it.
Just come around.
Question on the healthcare. So DOR says that we shouldn't have done it. Then why, now refresh my memory if I'm wrong, back when we did it, I thought DOR was on board with us.
No, they weren't.
They didn't say no.
No, they didn't.
Okay, but they didn't say yes, I understand that. But if they're so dead set against it now, why weren't they then so that we didn't do it? You know, it seemed like they weren't that against it then. Am I right or wrong? Am I wrong?
Who was telling us the information?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, you may.
That's wrong.
I'm wrong?
Director Perry was against it, strongly advised.
Us against it?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
However, it was not in your purview to make the final decision on that, it was in the town's.
Correct.
And and quite honestly, without that, the town is facing over $1 million deficit for the year.
Joey, okay.
The free
That's
cash.
the reason why it was actually the amount the holiday was originally set at 1.5. That was the size of the deficit between the school system and the town at the time. Right? Now, there was a lot of debate as to whether or not the surplus was correct. That I will grant you.
Okay.
That was probably a good part of Mr. Perry's concern. However, it was still the town's decision, they could still make it, all right? And quite frankly, that was the best way to kick the can down the road.
Okay, so everyone was pretty much against it, but we didn't have any choice.
DOR was against it.
The OR
We
was not
had,
much against it.
no, we had a choice. The choice was to start cutting services at the levels that we're cutting them going forward this year.
Okay, I
Well, we
understand.
put it.
I didn't realize then back then that it was that set against it. I was misinformed then, thank you.
I do a very simple correlation on there saying we wouldn't, if you look at it, the free cash is over $1 million, the holiday was over $1 million, but the free cash came from excess revenues and such. It wasn't that we under expended or overstated our issues. I need that to be clear. We also were able to get extra revenue in because it was 2 years worth of EMS receipts that made up roughly $600,000 of that. You won't get that every year. So I don't want, there's sort of, since I've been here for the short time, it doesn't always feel like it during budget season, but it's gloom and doom, and we always say this is sort of the end, and in a strange way, we do the bad thing that we actually make it through and get it done. We cut a little bit of services here, we kick the can down the road, and I think people, it's come to where the thought is that we're crying wolf on it, and we absolutely are not.
Good way to put it. I like that. I like that.
And many of the articles that you have in here, what we did last year, and I would recommend to the committee that we do again, we stated that for any article that we did not have a dollar amount, that we would not vote favorable or unfavorable on it. We had verbiage for that. And the rest of the articles that are on here, with the exception of 5, basically have to do with contracts, and contract could come, I suspect, I'll hear that it could come right down to the last day before the meeting.
Mr. Chair, they could come right down to the last day before the meeting.
Yes, I figured as much, all right, but understand that when we print, we have to print that we will not be able to do that. In line with that also, if it turns out that we get down to April 3rd and we don't have adequate information on numbers for the regular warrant, I think we should do the same thing. We say we don't have it, let them explain why we never had it.
And I understand that, that's
And if we,
That's on those
and if
with
we
the
get
numbers.
them late, we just bring it up at the town meeting, and we got them later.
I really want to be very strong in being cautionary about the 1 million too. You need a good, clean, clear explanation, or you could knock not only the special town meeting, but the regular town meeting off the tracks. We've seen that happen with one single article, which just turned it into such an adversarial situation that things don't get done.
We have to be really good
And
with
the town really,
our
at
advice.
this point, I think the citizens deserve a nice, clear, crisp explanation of what happened. And that includes if there's more than 1 year involved, et cetera. All right. What's gonna happen because of that is I know you're looking to do some things with employee health care going forward. That's gonna create, I think, within the town meeting itself, some concern, right, about whether or not the GIC is the correct way to go, et cetera. Because we can't go back and reverse that 2 years down the road, that's what we're doing here. Guess I'm done with my lecture, huh? Should have done that, okay, I'm sorry. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for taking the time out of a very busy schedule.
Thank
Send me an
Have a good
email.
evening.
It's nothing personal, we just don't like the Irish.
But
I'm not Hey, it was Heath, remember? Okay, so you also know, I've already made arrangements, Derek, so you know, I've also made arrangements making arrangements for the school committee, and send their representative for Dr. Rabinowitz to come in to discuss the revolving account for transportation, so you don't have to worry about that one.
All right, thank you.
And Barry said he definitely would be here with Jeff Tico.
Yeah, and I'd like to have them, as we go over jointly on the books there for the capital purchase, because I think it's, part of an overarching idea, but they're really the meat and bones part of it there, so.
Okay. And for members, I'm referring to article number 19, which is to see if the quote It's going to be a sum of money, not
No,
regular.
regular one.
From the transportation revolving account to purchase of these land or use the school transportation department. The number they're targeting, they're taking around is about $200,000. Alright, so, and it also relates back to their plan of transporting kids next year, et cetera. So it's really something they have to explain to us.
Mhm.
I haven't, and I'm sorry, I haven't spoken to the superintendent about this yet, but an article like that, we may have some during the annual, that I'm going to send you a report on, that I feel should be done in the fall. Because one of the things we've been doing is appropriating based off of future revenues on there. We know we'll get X amount in from June and then July, August the next year on there when they're doing the annual, but working with the town accountant, that's really not the appropriate way. So that's going to be some of the accounts that are part from the parking and such. Because even though we know historically every year we get those, it's not proper to vote it till you have the actual funds in those accounts.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Derek.
May 1st,
May Day?
for the parking meter. It's crazy. Huh? Look that we don't do that. It's just silly to make a big
Go
argument.
back to our agenda.
15 grand.
This is in 213, rather than 204. That actually can wait till next week. We're gonna have, invite Superintendent Dutchin, correct, next week,
Yes.
to go over his numbers. John and I did attend their meeting. You wanna recap that for everybody?
Yeah, they did a great presentation, Selectman Slavin and Selectman Tattlebaum were there as well. And we brought up all the issues about us, you know, we love everything that they're doing, but we just can't afford it. But they broke down all the children that are there, and you walk through their school building and it's still 40 years old, and it doesn't look more than 5 years old, because it's so well kept, so well maintained, and maybe it's because they plan, and I know that they do have tradespeople that go to school there and probably help out there, but I was under the impression that there was, no one else had any problems with their budget, no other towns had any problems with their budget except Wareham, so I'd be shocked if it doesn't get passed by the other 4 towns. And I was very interested to hear that they do provide special ed for 18% of their children. And even 20%, 7% of their children are on free reduced lunches.
What percent?
27%. So they do carry a burden themselves. I think you'll be impressed to talk to Mr. Dutch. And I don't know what else I can say about it. I just thought that,
We actually attended their public hearing before the committee voted, all right, for the, to approve the superintendent's budget. They pretty much agreed that they would come back and make that presentation to us as well. It's a very good show. It goes in a great deal of detail. I think it goes in an adequate amount of detail as our own school. We spend the whole day with the school. They go through everything. And then more importantly for us, is they go back and talk about how many students we have going and how the formula works based on general populations, et cetera. You walk out of there, if nothing else, knowing one thing: we are a major portion of the population in the school. And that's why we're paying a major portion of the expenses.
Would it be wise to invite any of the other committees to view the presentation if they're coming in to give it?
They'll make the same presentation at town
they're gonna do
meeting,
the
but
same thing at town meeting.
Okay.
it's up to us to vet ahead of time and make our recommendation.
Okay.
All right, and I think you really have to see the presentation and ask the questions
Mhm.
and be comfortable with your decision in the end. And I'm not saying that you're gonna be favorable or unfavorable, I'm just saying, I think you've got to go through that process with them, because they have the answers.
It's just very uncomfortable one way or the other, to me. I mean, it's a, and if you do, damn if you don't.
Well, the one thing too, you know, we're not, there's no way we can prepare ourselves right off the bat to educate these trades, even if we took it into our own school system, that would take us years to get there. And the one thing that stung like a bee to me is, you know, these kids come out of school and they're instant taxpayers.
Yep.
And they stay in the community, a lot of them. They stay with the community. And to me, that means a lot. It means a lot to have your children around if you can.
And daughter reaching that age where it looks like that's where she wants to go, is upper K. So from that standpoint, I totally believe in what they're doing. We've been through it, we've been down there and toured it, and it's a great facility and it's ran well.
Mhm.
And we get back to the original thought process where we have budget issues here that, to me, are also part of the equation.
Does anyone know if we put a restriction on how many kids can go from Wareham? Or they have a cap on how many they accept in total?
Well, it depends on how many children apply from different towns. Now, you'll see,
100 and something.
you'll see that,
But do we have it, do we?
Marion's only got, what, 14 kids there this year, or
Yeah.
13?
13 or 14.
13 children. They don't even have a representative there anymore. Sandwich has got 131, Falmouth's got 156, and Warren 138, and we have 248.
Mhm.
So the,
It's all classes, 248, correct?
yes,
See,
all
so
classes,
out
yeah.
of 300 applicants, so many get chosen every year.
Only 180.
So,
And then, we don't know how many didn't apply because they figured they couldn't get in. That
Gotta get
that
good
number could
grades.
be double.
What?
Gotta get good grades, it's tough to get in
The
there.
biggest
It's
thing
it's not a cakewalk
The
to get in.
big thing is behavior and attendance.
Mhm.
And if you try, you'll get into there. I mean, you don't have to have top dog grades there. Because
No.
a lot of kids are geared to the trades and do better under a different structural learning. I know my granddaughter is not
it's on camera now.
yeah, I know, I just thought that. You know, she's not the student of the month, okay? But she's done very well down there. Very
My
well.
son he does good there.
Yeah,
I don't know about restriction, there's always the question of school choice, et cetera, and what that would mean.
mhm.
We don't know, there's lots of legal issues that could be there. There's the possibility we could withdraw from Upper Cape. There's possibility we could send our kids to another vocational school. There's a whole bunch of other possibilities, but they're not for this town meeting. I think it's something for the school committee and
Mhm.
other leaders in the town to sit and talk about what
Exactly.
they're gonna do going forward. But it is a place for them to go. And yeah, if you go back and look at, if you take the general populations of each town and you work us out of each one as a percent of the total and apply that to the school population, we are by far way above where we should be as far as the number of kids going there. And if it was all evened out, it would be a much different picture. We are make up, I think, at least a third.
36%.
36.
Right.
The question that I don't think they answer well is how efficiently they run the place. They run it well.
That'll be your,
But
that'll
the
be your
question-
opportunity next week to actually discuss that with them. All right, Mr. Dutch is very good at answering the questions,
Mhm.
okay? And, you know, again, I'm not gonna try to answer questions for him, we'll wait for him to come, put the facts on the table. And he
He's,
probably has
he's
to-
here or at the town meeting.
He will
He's
be
gonna
here,
go.
no, he will be coming here next week. That's what we're gonna try to schedule. He will see us before we print our recommendation. I already.
Can we have an agenda for him as to the information we want him to come with?
He'll come with everything in his.
Salaries and
No, he's not
head
gonna-
count and
He's not
stuff
gonna,
like
he's
that.
not gonna do that.
Keep that out of our own school system, he's not gonna give you that info.
No.
Not gonna break it down that far.
We need that power.
He'll give it to you by category. How many,
Yeah.
you ask them, how much you
It's
spending on
already in here.
teachers, how much you spending on interventions, and all that. You can probably get that, but it comes down to salaries, you get those numbers.
And the gross numbers are all in here.
Yeah, so you better report here, right?
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
Yeah. I think you'd be surprised anyways. And then also too, it's very difficult to measure teachers in that type of school compared to our, what we're running for our public school, because there are trades involved, et cetera, and there are licensed, and it's people not only certified teachers, but they're licensed professionals as well. And I know that in.
There's pension plans and a lot of other stuff that,
What do they have?
They're in the same pension plan that,
Is it right?
I know, but
Right.
the number of pension people feeding off the pension plan.
well, it's no worse than us, it's a matter of, you know, who's there, and their health benefits, I'm not sure, all right, but I know they're under GIC because they talked about money that they had saved in their budgeting process by going to the GIC, to the GIC.
I was just gonna say anecdotally with regard to salaries there, my husband had looked into it at one point as a proud Upper Cape grad, and we had a friend who did work there, going there specifically for the benefits, and both of them said that salary didn't really make it worth what they were going to get for benefit out of it. So anecdotally, I don't think it's comparable to the real world of private industry, what you can make, so.
Again, we can address those questions then, Mr. Dutch, when he's here.
Yeah, this is what, he came down with the GIC. It came down from 1,936,804 to 1,893,028.
Yes.
He said
And they
that's,
had savings last year
Yeah.
too. Last year was the first year they went
Yeah.
on it, which meant they had to pay 25 cents to the employees. So this year's savings has to do with the fact that they don't have to pay that 25% first year savings to the employees. So they're 2 years ahead of us,
yeah.
and even contemplating GIC as well.
They're developing a wind farm they're gonna cut their electricity 20%. They're their own municipality up there.
Well, they are their own district. I mean,
Yeah.
That's really what they are.
They are considered a municipality.
They are considered a municipality. I was very, very surprised.
Next item on the agenda is chairman's letter to the voters. How you doing on your letter?
I don't know how
It's
it's
reasonable.
As you know, so any ideas we have, we should send to you.
Yeah, please, any ideas, send me and I'll bring them over to Frank's and we'll get it together.
Bring over
Is it-
where?
At your house.
Theater.
Is it appropriate to discuss certain articles that we're favorable for in your letter? I'm just thinking overall
We
tone.
never have.
I know, but
Uh,
let me just finish my thought
Yeah,
here,
okay.
because one of the things that, Derek's coming in to the situation of how we've always done it, how it's always been, and he's bringing this idea of, well, it really shouldn't be done that way, you shouldn't encumber funds, so maybe an overall comment about moving forward with new ideas, and specifically I'm thinking about the reorganization with the department for more efficiency.
I read the town of Bourne's finance committee report. It's just about everything they've done this year. That's it. That's it. The meetings, the this, the that. And I'm like, wow, that's nothing like ours. Because I just kind of wanted to see how other people wrote it.
I agree with that.
You know, maybe that's,
Well, that's generally what I think it should be like, but we're in a different world than Bourne, and I think what we have to do as a finance committee is lay out the situation for the people that are voters. If they need to know where we stand, not just as a committee, but the financial health of this town. You can't depend on, I guess, the selectmen or anyone else to say that, so we need to say, and we don't, the thing is, the more you add in there, the more people's eyes glaze over out there, because they want something that's quick and to the point. This is the finance committee's opinion of where we're standing at this point. These are the issues that we're facing. Thank you very much. And that way, you don't overuse that message, and you don't, because I've said in the audience, and listen, it can get long-winded, and it certainly, you lose people. We don't want to lose them. We want to set up the town meeting for people to listen.
I think,
Boilerplate ain't gonna work either.
So what?
I said boilerplate in the letter ain't gonna work either.
I think, you know what, I think we told them all last year what was gonna happen, and it has happened.
Just need to reemphasize that.
And then no miracles.
There, you know, and I think it's not a bad idea to reiterate on what Frank said last year. I mean, we told you it was gonna happen, and it's here. Now we've got to face it.
That's a great way to start, Dawn.
Madam Chair?
Now, that he's the chair today, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Don.
Do you think? Did we write last year that we were against the healthcare in our letter to begin with?
It wasn't last year, it was the year before, wasn't it?
2 years ago, no, we didn't,
No,
right? And the reason why we didn't was there was no way to balance the budget.
I understand that, but I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that something was mentioned that it could gloom us later on, and it has.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought maybe that we
We'll have to
could,
take a
that we
look.
could fall back on that statement, not that we told you so, but
There was a citizens that got up at the meeting and said that, because I know it was me, that, you know, I came up, I was not on the FinCom.
but I thought we wrote something about
But
it.
I think everyone who spoke in favor of it said it was a last choice. It really was
That's
no
exactly
other.
what
We
we
all
said,
said we don't like it,
because we didn't
but
even,
we can't find a
we
way
didn't
around
even,
it.
if you remember, Dominic, we had an audit beforehand, we didn't even think we had enough to do it. And remember we had an audit, and everybody was all over John Sanjanet, and then John Sanjanet was right, we did have the money to do it.
Sanjanet's the one who pulled that off? No.
No, he started
Oh,
it,
okay, okay.
he started it. He's the one that got it rolling.
Okay.
I don't want to get into too much, because I don't think there's a clear picture
All right.
as to what years are involved
Okay.
that this 1.2 million is going to cover,
That's right.
okay? And we're making assumptions that everything beyond the audit was okay, and everything in the audit was okay. We don't know that.
No,
This could be a multiple year item,
All right.
all right? And even if we, in that case, and there's maybe some questions about the original audit, the second audit that was done, all right? But I don't think we're at that point, right? We don't have enough information.
Okay.
It would have been, the question is do you sit and hold $1.5 million extra surplus if you don't need to, all right? And basically, I think when all the facts come out, there was a surplus there, and there's been some additional things that occurred because of our accounting methodologies.
But
And now we gotta correct those.
But as Derek said, he said 600-some thousand was 2 years receipts from the EMS. What are we waiting 2 years for to balance
Well,
them
the
for?
question is
Why did we wait 2 years?
why
Yeah.
wasn't it picked up each of those 2 years?
And that was also an
But
accounting.
that's free cash, that's not the healthcare payback.
No, I understand that, and I didn't mean to get off the subject, but when I'm
All
trying to.
part of the accounting problem.
Okay, well, then,
That's-
what Don had said before then, writing about how the new director there is gonna help us, would we write that we feel that this would try to eliminate some of the slip-ups in the past, or is that wrong?
I think we need to make it general.
General
General,
terms.
so you don't lose the people, don't get specific, make it general.
Then just boilerplate it. You're not giving, the people are looking for something from us that says how bad we're doing, how good we're doing. Not stamp it and says, the price of roast beef is $1.29 today. We all know
I'm
that.
gonna read that real fast.
I think I think you're right in the sense that we can come back in the main letter and say, based on past history, a reorganization is in order.
Right.
Exactly.
And I don't think we need to go beyond that.
No, I
because
don't.
it's gonna
That's
come
general.
out.
That's
No. You can generalize it like that, but still put us in a direction that
Yeah.
we feel we're going.
And that should be towards the conclusion.
Okay.
Towards the end of the letter, we should be making a recommendation that some things have to change.
I'm not a good letter writer, but you understand what I'm trying to
No,
say
I understand.
anyways.
Very good.
I understand exactly.
Lay out the situation, but you give the positive feedback that these are the things, I mean, whether it's positive, you give them the feedback that there are actions going to have to take place in order for this to be,
But we don't need to steal their thunder either.
who's
Okay?
thunder.
The town administration.
Yeah.
comes in with-
No, I don't wanna butt anybody. I don't wanna.
I have no,
I don't wanna diss
Well,
anybody.
I don't want to
No,
put
I
in the
wanna-
letter that this is what should happen. He says, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do that because.
We
People
recommend.
say, oh, the only reason why he's doing it is because the FinCom said. It's his
No. It's
reorganization.
his reorganization.
He brought it up and said
and
this is
he
the best
should-
way to do it.
he
So
should
I don't
be
know.
We
right
feel that it's the right direction to go.
They feel it in his direction, absolutely.
We'll find a way to word it so that they'll understand why will or won't agree to it. Okay? Assignment of the articles for the FinCom recommendations. Madam Chair, I recommend that you do that.
Assign the
Assign them
articles.
out, sure.
Do you want me to send them tonight, or do you want me to
Well,
get them
I
next
think
week?
We can get them next week.
Okay. Yeah, I do.
Remember the name Frank.
No, just remember, Larry.
Frank. Maryland.
If anybody feels that, if there's any particular article that anybody
They
would
feel
like to write,
strongly and would like to
let's
write
do
on.
what we did. And remember, we're always available, we made it, we practiced last year, that if somebody had a strong opinion contrary to the majority, they
Exactly.
are also able to put theirs in writing as well.
And I think that's,
How do you
I think that's, I think that's a good thing.
All right, so again, that should be open to us, right?
So it's next week, that's it. We're voting next week.
Yes,
End of story discussion.
Yes.
We're voting.
Voting
We
and
should vote
signing.
on as many as we possibly can next week.
Voting and assigning.
All right, it's gonna be a long meeting next week because we're gonna have a number of different people in, right?
We start
I know you guys work, and I can appreciate that. Try and get here as soon as possible for next week.
Sorry, but Dad, I would have been here, but Dad's in hospital and that's what my mother said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, he's doing okay.
I'm sorry.
Old Coop's 84.
Oh, he's young.
Yeah.
He'll bounce back.
I won't tell you what he said. He's laying in there, he says, pull the plug up, time to go. That's what he said.
You know, I didn't review the town
Is it
meeting.
worth moving our meeting up to 6 o'clock?
No, because you know what, we tried that before, you know what happened, then we started, we
Start at
instead of being
6:30.
an hour late starting, we were an hour and a half late starting. Unfortunately.
I've learned that I have to
That's
leave
because
at
of
4:30
traffic.
because it hits at 4:30.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's because of traffic and stuff.
No, it's just things, whatever is going on
Oh,
at
yeah,
work.
nothing,
mean,
I know, at
just-
the end of the day, everything starts, I understand.
Can you just one thing,
I know.
I think we pretty much talked about the town meeting deadline. All right,
Public hearing.
public hearing, the only thing we have, that I see for the public hearing would be the 3rd.
Is that what you said? Oh, yeah, good.
does the public hear- when does the public hearing have to?
We have to advertise it. It takes 2 weeks to advertise.
But it doesn't have
And
to.
you don't want to have it, you don't want to have the public hearing after we've written a recommendation.
No,
Also, there's going to be comments, and we should be aware of.
Right,
have a
and
chance
so
to
it boils us
revisit.
down to between the advertising time.
nobody's gonna show up, but.
The 3rd is the only date.
And
Well, we could do something weird and have one show.
The annual and the special, correct?
Yes, we both,
Yeah,
Same
annual and a
night.
special next week.
same night.
There's not that many articles on the
What?
special.
Annual and a special, we're gonna vote on next week, right?
Yes, we should vote on those next week. And we have the public hearing. And we can actually vote on April 3rd as well. All right, and then I understand this, somebody's gonna want to at least reconsider one other article that we've already voted on.
One would hope that that would be the budget that we actually
Oh, it will be.
live with.
Anyone have any new business?
No.
Any liaison reports?
Just briefly, and I promise to keep, I did have a chance to speak with Matt briefly, and I think he said there's a possibility that information as it concerns the virtualization and where we stand might be coming in the very near future, but, and that's critical from the standpoint of money and going forward, so
Still speculation till the paper arrives.
that's what he said too, so.
Still speculation. Any other liaison reports?
I did meet with the municipal maintenance.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
On the fuel
But,
article,
yeah, on that specific article, and discuss it at
Well,
the, we
so let's
discussed
do
that.
Sure. Because you did it as a liaison role.
Well, I didn't know it was a liaison, or just warrant specific.
No.
I met with the director and David Menard, who's the guy that runs the system that they're trying to replace. And essentially, they fuel every vehicle in town except for the police department. And the town has 4 places where you can get fuel.
The town has 2 places you can
But
get fuel.
the geographic area that we
Well,
consider
the
as
districts
aware
in the town are
has 4
separate.
places where there's,
Let's not
4
blend,
pumping
let's not
places.
confuse our audience and blend 2 that we really, you know, it would take an awful lot of special
But
events.
yeah, no, all I'm doing is giving you a sort of a helicopter view of where the town stands. They've got, the police station has gas in the ground. The water department has the two above ground pumps, one for diesel, one for gas, right almost across the street from the police station. And the fire department in Onset has an above the ground, and I just drove by it and it looked like it was all of one flavor, and I'm assuming it was diesel, but I don't know that for sure. And they have two 5,000 gallon tanks at the municipal maintenance department. And they pump for, as I said, everybody from the outboards to the mowing machines to the all of the school buses. They do the last 12 months, running 12 months, they did 36,000 or 37,000 gallons of gas and 75,000 gallons of diesel. So it's almost 112,000 gallons.
That's a lot of gallons.
And this, out of 5,000 gallon tank, and I believe that the over-the-road tank trucks are more in the 8 to 10,000 gallon category, so they don't have a full load. But if you save 60 cents a gallon on 112,000 gallons, you have a 66 times 11, $66,000 savings. And the primary thing that they're doing is replacing the control system. And the control system allows a vehicle that has a monitor it's tied into the computer system in the car to recognize the car and accept the nozzle and pump gas into that car and record the transaction. And you also have the ability to record the driver if the driver chooses to enter that information. And it's open 24 hours a day. The car can come up and open the gate and go in, and if they're one of the 128 vehicles that are authorized to do this, they can pump gas. If they're not, you just take the nozzle to the tank and it won't pump. So it's a fraud. It's a controlled vehicle.
So I was under the understanding that the pumps were not working.
The pumps work fine.
Okay.
There's some question as to whether the metering is currently correct. And the point that David was making is that they have been, for the last 5 years, have been using up all of their spare parts that they had for the system. And they're down to all of their spare parts. They've used them all up. They've even given some to the police department, as the police department has the same issue. We've got to replace, they're running right now. If one more thing breaks, they described it as a coil, most likely because they've been replacing at the rate of every 3 or 4 months. They're supposedly down. You can't, I mean, you gotta believe that if a coil went down, they'd figure out some sort of a jury rig to get it going again. But whether it would operate to its full potential is problematic. So they're at the end of the string with this equipment. What they're replacing it with is state of the art. The one thing that they're not doing that I would encourage them to do, in that I only spent a half an hour, 45 minutes over there, I don't think they're using all of the information that they're being recorded at the time the transaction is made. In other words, every vehicle, they know when it comes in, how many miles it went, what fuel they used, so they could get reports out and trigger information as to vehicles that were underperforming and needed specific maintenance requirements. That's what I know.
Oh, it was good.
Thank you.
So are you satisfied that it will be money well spent?
There's a,
Somewhat more satisfied.
yeah, no, I'm satisfied that we would get our money's worth. The one thing that I asked if they weren't able to answer, or nobody can answer, but 10 years from now, what is going to be the requirement for fuel for the vehicles that they'll be operating 10 years from now? Will it be propane? Will it be battery? Who knows? So you're locked into a
It'll still
system
be
that
gas
does
and
gas.
diesel because this town
this-
won't have any new vehicles.
If this-
Good girl, Marilyn.
If it was the police department, there's no way that I would recommend that they do that. I would consolidate the two. And the other thing that we have a lot of equipment. It's incredible. the amount of
Yeah,
equipment.
and nobody can run it.
And there's nobody to get,
You gotta sell it.
to run it. I mean, the tree chipper wasn't out, the street cleaner wasn't out, the thing that cuts along the side of the roads wasn't out.
It's winter time.
Huh?
It's winter time.
No,
Well, they
it
can
isn't.
chip
I
and
mean,
do
the
it.
tree work is
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
needed. But it's just that they don't have the head count to do it. And they've got a lift over there. I don't, is it, anybody walk through there?
Yeah, but
That lift, I bet they've got the same thing over in the bus department too. They don't?
No.
It would seem to me that these guys are so close to each other, there ought to be one maintenance area for both facilities.
I think that's been brought up before. Yeah, the situation on the bus makes no sense because it's dangerous when you've got the lift right in the next building.
Well,
But
but there is an opportunity, I mean, there's certainly an opportunity for some consolidation and cutting of overhead, I would think, with the two facilities so close to each other. And that would be the maintenance area. It's a nice, I was impressed with the facility.
It's a nice facility.
Dave Bernard's the one.
Mhm.
sounds good. Any other liaison reports? Approval of the meeting minutes from March 13th.
So moved.
Does it have a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections that anyone saw? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Anybody not here last week? So we're 5-6 there. Next meeting date is next week, 7th, 6:30. Please be sharp, because it's going to be a long meeting. According to what I was just writing down, we should be talking to Mr. Gifford, Mr. Dutch, Mr. Peanut, Dr. Rabinovitz, and the head of the bus, Mr. Tetro, the town administrator, and the petition article. So that's 6 people right there, plus we have to do votes, et cetera. So that'll be right along this week.
I'm not 100% sure I'll be back in time. I'm coming back on that day from being away, but I think I'm coming back in the early enough afternoon to make it. I will try.
Okay, we'll try to make it from 6:30. Doesn't make sense to move it up because, like I said, people are from the traffic, et cetera. And, you know, we still have the theory behind it, let's make everybody we can, because we'll look at some of the recommendations and stuff.
I would like to, if it's appropriate, bring snacks so we can make it through a long meeting and not run low on fuel and be angry. So
Okay.
I will,
So moved.
I'll be in charge of snacks.
Don't call me
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.